a conversation with John Druckenmiller. Stay tuned right after this.
Packers.
Vikings.
Packers.
Vikings.
Vikings.
Red state, blue state, vegan,
Carnivore.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
downtown,
Optimist.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
half full.
But when we live united, we create real, lasting change in the building blocks of life. The education, income, and health of our communities,
Live
our families,
united.
even the person next to us.
Live united.
Real change won't happen without you. So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up at liveunited.org.
Welcome to Community Watch. Greg,
Doug,
how you doing?
fine, and yourself?
I'm doing great.
Oh, that's good to hear.
And you?
I won't complain. I mean, I could, but I won't.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, I'm
So-
pretty sure you got your problems just like everybody else.
Yeah, but it's only a 30-minute show.
Yeah, it would take a while, wouldn't it?
We have a great guest today, and I
So
guess
like our
it's
show.
kind of,
Yeah.
and I guess could we say former coworker, kind of, because you did your radio show out of that studio too, right?
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did. It wasn't that long ago. You're
Yes,
looking like
well,
it was like the distant past.
I'm getting old.
No, it wasn't
But
that long
yeah,
ago.
you know, out of a, yeah.
What was the name of your show?
Redefining.
Okay.
Redefining.
It's a good show.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people.
Well, you
do.
actually learn a lot. This is one thing I've learned about the TV show and the radio show. You actually learn a lot about your community
Yeah.
when you're doing those type of shows. And that's why it'd be interesting to talk to Mr. Druckenmiller today. So I'm quite sure he's learned a lot.
Well, John Druckenmiller has really created a unique place for himself, both with online and radio and a lot of different ways. So I'm excited to talk to him. And I think you're going to enjoy the show today. We'll be right back with our guest after this, so don't go away.
If you're looking for a new pet that your family will cherish every day, consider adopting from a shelter. Shelters are the best places to find a new pet. That's where you'll discover healthy, loyal, and loving animals, eager to become a part of your family. A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet, so bring home your new buddy today. To find out more, visit theshelterpetproject.org.
Welcome back to Community Watch, and we're very happy to have with us today John Druckenmiller.
Yep.
Welcome
Thank
to
you
the
very
show.
much.
All right, so currently you're on the radio 5 or 6 days?
5 days a week,
5 days.
unless you know something I don't know
Okay,
about.
all
That's
right. So 5 days, and that's RGA.
WRGA, now 98.7 FM, as well as 1470, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays,
And in addition to that, Hometown Headlines.
which is 24/7, but no, it's lying because I do sleep at nighttime. Not a lot, but I do sleep.
Well, I want to talk about both of those things, but I was curious how you ended up here, and because your career as a journalist started long before Rome, so.
I got out of the University of Florida in 1977 with a degree in journalism, and really didn't get into the field, the newspaper field, for about 6 months. It was during a recession, and there was not a lot of hiring going on. And thank God, an old college professor called up and said, I said, oh, she's probably about 3 years older than I was, said, do you still want to be a journalist? There's an opening in the Lakeland Ledger, over right between Orlando and Tampa. And went over, applied for the job, and like any young person, I was a total geek. I showed up in a nice banana yellow suit, in a nice, I can still remember the outfit. And the guy looked at me like, are you out of your mind? And so the interview went down from there. I thought, this is it. He finally said to me, all right, final question, what do you want to do when you grow up? And at the time, it was serious. I said, well, my hairline already was on the way out. And I said, get a hair transplant. The guy sat back and laughed at me for a minute, and he goes, you just got the job. I'm like, okay, and that was it. So, but a great group of people, as a matter of fact. In fact, I still email these folks today, as a matter of fact. Good newspaper, New York Times affiliate down in Lakeland, Florida. That's since been sold. But it went from there into the Gannett Group down in Fort Myers, then back to where I grew up in Cocoa Beach, Florida, for Florida Today. Back then was Today. And then spent a little time USA Today, Fresno, California, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Fulton County Daily Report, Rome News Tribune. And then when that ended back in early 2004, we had moved here about 2 years earlier. Back then my son was all of about 2.5 years old. Didn't want to raise him on 285 in Atlanta. We had a beautiful house, a great location, 3 doors down from our in-laws, 4 doors down from our pediatric doctor, and our dentist was like 2 blocks away. So it was all very convenient. But we wanted to raise Jack and ourselves, get back to a smaller community. This job opened up, applied for it, interviewed it, and we were hired the next day. And that lasted about 17 months at the Rome News Tribune as editor. Had a great time, actually, most of it. And then wanted to stay local. We wanted to stay up here. We wanted to get back to a small town. And I've owned the URL, the address for hometownheadlines.com for about 3 or 4 years at that time anyway, thinking one day when I'm tired, I want to get out. I was too cocky to call it a public relations business. I thought if I ever get out of this, I'm going to start a news consultancy where I would go work with people who want to get stuff in the media, whatever level it was. And I already had a little experience on the web. I was at the AJC, I was an online editor, not as you would think you're sitting there producing online news. Our job was to cover anything happening in the internet world and put it into the print edition to explain to people. This is back when the internet was still kind of new, 2000, 2001. And to say this is how it affects your life. Like nowadays we'll watch TV and Twitter along with a TV show. Well, back then you maybe had a program, what was it, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Had a very limited interactive thing, but it was one of the first TV shows. So our job was to translate that and show you what's going on and how that meant. So it kind of got me dabbing a little bit into the internet world. So I figured, okay, if I ever get tired of journalism or they get tired of me, I'm going to start doing this. So, here it was, we had our little falling out, and I said, well, at 10 o'clock in the morning I was unemployed. At 11 o'clock in the morning I had business cards that said Hometown Headlines and a cell phone, thinking, okay, I'm going to do this little PR gig. Didn't, and to get folks to read it, we wanted to put some kind of a little bait out there. So we figured, well, we still had some good contacts in town. It's a very generous town in terms of information. I figured, okay, we'll just, do a little bit of headlines and get them in here and say, hey, by the way, we'll come work for you, do whatever. The news part took off right away. I mean, not the advertising part, unfortunately, not the revenue part, but the news part took off, so we knew that's the course to go. That Rome needed, I don't call it an alternative news site or whatever it is, or whatever, just a different one. Something would focus more on politics, on health, and some of the subjects you don't get a lot in today's daily paper. And really grew it that way, through emails. I mean, we'd do the online, of course, Hometown Headlines, and we'd do, back then CNN was doing a great job of sending you daily headlines of here's the top stories of the day. Well, why can't we do that? And we'd offer, we'd just say, just give us your email address. We want nothing else. Don't care about gender, how many cats you have, or anything else. Just send us the email address and we'll send you, and no spam, here's today's top stories or breaking news. And it grew slowly in 2004 to today. Now we're 10 and a half years into it. Got 1,000 1,000 email subscribers. We're getting 6,000, 7,000 page views a day. It'll go up for bigger news or weather editions or elections. All over Facebook. I mean, I make horrible jokes about Facebook, about if you want to get a cat photo up, there's no place better to go than Facebook, but it's a wonderful marketing tool. The number one thing we do to market Hometown Headlines now is Facebook. People go there, they'll follow, we'll put a headline up. For more, come to hometownheadlines.com, and there they come in there. And we're growing by 17% a month, mostly because of that.
Now, back in Florida when you were getting started, were you just a beat reporter, or?
My first job was covering something in Lake Wales, Florida, kind of the center of the state. In fact, Tiger Evans, the principal here at Rome High School, was there back then. Didn't know him back then, but it's funny. He was getting out of high school and going on or whatever, so we kind of joke about that now. He was a proud Highlander, Lake Wales Highlander. Did that for 3 months and hated it. It was just me, one-person operation out there. I mean, you had people you met and all. The main office was 45, 50 miles away. So when a police beat opened up, I thought, I'm going to do that. And back then, the police beat was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, driving down to the sheriff's department and getting the jail reports and all that kind of good stuff. It was really a crazy schedule for, especially if you're like, 23, 24 years old out of college. Not great on the social life, not great on the dating life, but did that for a number of years, and it really made me a much better reporter. I mean, you learned you had to be accurate right away. You didn't have time to kind of think, whatever. You didn't have the internet back then. Your internet back then was what's called a city directory, about this big. And any name you ran, you went through there and you made sure and checked his or her name in the city directory, her address, the telephone number, to ensure you had the right person before you put him or her in a police report. So a lot more work, a lot more, and there wasn't investigative work, it was just fact checking back then. But really, it taught a lot of good lessons. Deadline reporting, deadline writing. I've never been a so-called writer. I'm not someone who's going to sit there and write all these beautiful prose. But if it comes to getting something out quick and hopefully accurate, you learn that. It's the best speed to have for any young reporter, is a police beat.
Yeah.
So, John, when you look at Hometown Headlines, you said it's grown. In the 10 years you've been doing it and you've grown, what is it that you really enjoy about it? I mean, because clearly, if you've taken something that you had a URL 3 years ago prior to that and you've grown it now for 10 years, it has to be a real passion. So what is it about Hometown Headlines that you just really enjoy?
I love to find out what's going on. And maybe it's, I guess, the glorified term is gossip. But I mean, I want to know what's happening, but not the cut and dry stuff. You don't see a lot of police reports on there. You don't see much, if any, kind of meetings on there. Because people, WRGA is doing that. Rome News Tribune's doing that. Others are trying to do that. I didn't want to do that. I want to do something a little bit different. And a lot of things people don't like. A lot of journalists don't like medical. They don't like business. They don't like politics. I liked all three. I was a business reporter after covering police. I've always had a passion for politics. In fact, had things worked out the other way around, I would have been a political science teacher with a minor in journalism. But when I enrolled at Florida, they said, well, in that case, you better take Latin. And I was an altar boy. But I mean, when I became an altar boy, I learned this much Latin. So I'm like, no foreign language. So anyway, that got me into journalism. And those three subjects were kind of something I like to do. Health in this community is one of the top things, education. So things that weren't being covered a lot, we kind of focused on those. And two other real quick things. People love to read about food in this town. You can tell by my waist size, I am also a food person, so I love food. Restaurant news and weather news. All those things were not really being covered, so rather than being an alternative, we decided, well, you guys go do the cops and robbers and the agenda stuff, and we're going to do this stuff. And we just developed a very good audience for it, and hopefully we've kept that audience over the years.
Now, when you say we, how many persons beside yourself are involved with Hometown Headlines?
Myself, Natalie Sims, who was a former writer and a former public relations worker here in town, when she had her second baby, decided she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So whenever, like right now, as we're doing this, Natalie is doing Hometown Headlines. So it's kind of, well, she'll jump in, we kind of give her a schedule, maybe 20 hours a week at the most, so that kind of thing. It may be 40 if I'm on vacation. Paid vacation in my line of work means you're paying somebody else to do your job. And she does it quite well.
And so, do you just kind of scroll down? I mean, I'm wondering how this works with the news items. Do they just, as they get older, they go further down the page?
Correct. The current format we use, we changed it about 1 year ago this month, as a matter of fact. We went to a new style. In the old days, we just cut, after it ran for a day or so, it's gone. Now it will be forced down, and we can categorize it. So if you want to find out the Rome Braves game from April 4th of this year, you can still, if you want to dig through it. Now it's going to be a little bit of a digging process, but we have it archived and all. But we kind of time things out. We can kind of change it where the play is. And if it's a lead story, I mean a really big story, you can put a different time on it and keep it at the top of the page. Or some things that maybe aren't that important, you can kind of just put a different time on it. It's all time controlled now. The time stamp is something that can be changed a lot. So we try to keep the top stuff out there, the most important stuff out there. But other times it could just be the top items of those couple of hours.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, it's the articles are fairly brief. I mean, it's like a to the point kind of thing. So, if it's ideal for folks who are in a hurry, but they want to know what's going on.
We try to do it that way. Remember the Kiplinger newsletters?
Yeah.
In a way, and believe me, they're much more sophisticated than we are. I've always been a fan since my first business reporting days of Kiplinger. I tried to copy that format though. Just give, here's the news you need to know. Now, if you need to add the quotes, that kind of thing, that's great. But other times, some folks say, well, just tell me what's happening. And you put links in there. So if you do want more information, you hit that link and you can drill and get as much as you like. We were one of the first media in town to do that. Offer you, if you want more information, here's what we know, here's the headlines, here's what it means locally. If you need to know more than this, click this. Go to CNN, go to Fox News, go to whatever resource you want to use. We make sure and provide those links, so if you do want to go deeper, here's where you can go. So you got the local thing, what it means to us. You want more, pop that thing and you're right inside.
Well, we need to take a break here. When we come back, we'll have more conversation with John Druckenmiller, so please stay with us.
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We're having a conversation with John Druckenmiller of Hometown Headlines and WRGA, which is now on FM as well.
Yep, we have it's called a translator. It's not like a separate signal. It's 98.7 FM, so basically it's the same pattern or signal we had before with the AM, but this gives you can get into the homes and buildings a whole lot better with this translator. So 98.7 and of course 1470 AM.
So how did that come about? From the
our managing partner is a miracle worker. Howard Toole, boss, you hearing that, by the way? No, Howard's a great guy. It's a process. In fact, you just seen the some folks here in Rome sold to another translator over to WBHF in Cartersville. Well, they'll be doing the same thing, and I think some of the stations in Calhoun do the same thing. Basically, it's an FM signal in a sense, but unlike when you own, like say, for a while there, you used to have WRGA AM and FM. You had the 93.5 or 95.3 signal until that all got changed out. This is different. This is something you can have. It's called an FM translator, but you have to have the exact same programming on the AM side and the FM side. If not, you're not what's called a translator. Some FCC rules, and it goes on for books and all that kind of stuff. Bottom line is it gives us a much better, richer signal in the footprint of WRGA. Our sports station now, the former 1360, the Jock has the same thing now. I mean, you'll probably see one or two more in some of the other properties. Rome Radio Partners has 5 or 6 radio stations. And some of the AMs, I think most of the AMs will soon get the same translator like this.
So when did you start the radio part of your career?
It's funny, radio goes back, honest to God, back when I was going to Brevard Community College in Cocoa, Florida. In fact, we were a little bit involved with stations down there, WEZY, WRKT. They want college students to come forward, and I got a big mouth, and I'd go in there and talk to these guys. And God bless them, they're still around, some of these guys, which is very odd in radio. But you go in there and talk about student affairs, about what's going on, what some of the world politics, what it means to students, and I really enjoyed that part of it. Really enjoyed it. I was always print. And then from there on to college, not much. And actually, when I moved to Georgia in 1990, over in Gainesville, Georgia, WDUN, very similar market to ours here, and also WDUN, the Jacobs family. We started doing a 5-minute radio show every day from the Gainesville Times, which was also an afternoon newspaper. We would call in our headlines that morning. They had their own separate news department, and it grew into kind of a little this and a little bit of that. So it was a lot of fun. And did that for several years over there, and then when I moved up here, we started talking about doing the same thing with these guys. We did a little bit for a while with LAQ. Then when I left the paper, did a lot of work with LAQ, and about 4 or 5 years ago, WRGA wanted to take into a daily thing, kind of like we used to do, but basically not, here's the headlines and a little bit of commentary. Did that for 2 years. It was very successful, and they said, well, let's try a daily show. I'm like, okay, kind of scared the heck out of me. And from 7 to 9 a.m. in the morning, let's try to do this. And that night before, I've walked in the newsrooms that have been, you've had companies taken over, you've had the last editor who's been fired, or the last editor was a saint, and you're coming in as the bad guy. 9, 10 newspapers never bothered me. But doing that radio show the first day, I was up the night before, I had stacks of paper You know, I had that whole 2 hours written. I got through 2 sheets of it.
Yeah.
That's how the thing went. Yeah, so what we do now is very highly interview. First half an hour is kind of a, you know, here's today's top news and a little commentary or whatever, and then we have the interviews from 7:40, one at 8:10, and one at 8:40. And we try to bring in a lot of mostly local faces, newsmakers, but we do get in, you know, the Johnny Isaacsons, the Saxby Chamises, the Phil Gingreys, the Tom Grays. So we'll try to go mostly local, but also bring in the DC crowd, so to speak.
Well, I know your show is totally different from what we do here, but I've always been impressed with the way that you come up with questions, and I don't know if you prepare them ahead or not, but I know we don't. We tend to just listen to people, and the questions come naturally out of that.
We have, well, see, and we try, that's how when we get guests in there, I try to say to them, this is really just a conversation. We're going to talk about, but we try to hone it to the news, what's happening. Like today, you know, there's something happening with the new stadium at Berry College. We're trying to get the people designing that or the architects on board the next day to talk more about that. The radio program, believe it or not, is really fashioned after a newspaper because it's based on hometown headlines. It really is. Whatever on hometown is usually going to be on that radio show, whatever our main stories are today. There's not a great amount of synergy, but there's some. But we try to get, like, you know, sometimes it may be stuff like elections, of course, and y'all been on, you know that. You know, we'll do a lot. We'll work with the candidates, or we'll get, you know, Secretary of State Brian Kemp on talking about the elections or how complicated runoffs are and how horrible turnout is or whatever it is. But we'll try to, you know, at least keep it based about what's happening in the news that time. I'm fighting like a madman to get CDC to come on right now on Ebola. And I mean, when you get, this is true, all right, this is true. I got an email back from the media director at the CDC in Atlanta about getting an Ebola expert on the program. His response to me was, we don't have anybody here skilled enough to talk about it on radio. And I'm thinking, you're treating 2 Ebola patients down there? Okay. This is serious. This is serious. And believe me, as we tape this right now, do this right now, we are, you know, there's emails that are flying back and forth. Hopefully we'll get somebody on board. I mean, for the reason, nothing else, is to say we want to give you the complete, accurate story. We don't want the Facebook, you know, hysteria out there. Tell us about it. Tell us what's going on. And that's how we try to get on. We got to try to get people who have knowledge and passion and maybe have personality too. Because, you know, some folks can come in there and they'll give you the 3-word answers. And you're kind of like,
we've been there.
We've been there.
Oh, that's a 100-question show right there. And, you know, and do I prepare questions? No, luckily, because most of the stuff, like I said, is going to be on hometown headlines. So either it's not scripted at all. In fact, I bring in there a printout. The same email you may get in your email boxes in the morning, that is my show prep for the day. So,
and that's one thing I enjoy about our show is that you really we're at an event where we get to learn a lot of stuff that everybody may not know. And I really enjoy that because I have learned so much about Rome and this community doing the TV show that I sometimes feel that a lot of our citizens are not privy to. You know, because you get to talk to people, you have these conversations. Is that one of the things you enjoy about doing this?
Very much so. In fact, you'd be surprised. You think, okay, I've lived here 11 years, been doing hometown headlines, doing, you know, the newspaper. You think, okay, you know, now you don't know everything. I'm not saying that, but every day you walk out of there, something you did not know you learn from that source, that interview, that, you know, aftermath. It is educational.
You know, hearing you talk about your career and the different phases of it, currently what you're doing, it makes me think about what our journalism students are being told, that journalism is not, it's a dead end major, you know, because, you know, print media is going out, which may not be true. I don't know. I still read a lot myself, but it makes me think, hearing you, that really the future is there for you to create for yourself.
Absolutely. This is the time where it's entrepreneurial journalism. Don't do what I do. Believe me, you don't want to work 70 hours a week. You don't want to have to work, you know, have one day weekend. I'm not whining, but we've been very fortunate, and it actually has worked out great with my son's athletic career and school career. So you got time. The thing is, you can go do those things, but the problem is when you get home, they're all waiting for you. So you still got to do them. But no, but this is a wonderful time. There's never been, I think, seriously, never been a better time to be a journalist. But you're going to be a different kind of journalist. And people, you were talking about how some of the items on Hometown Headlines are short. We find that people don't read the long, we have one wonderful writer in this town who would write these great things for us. I mean, really well researched and well documented and a good read. And unfortunately, they'd get 10% of the readership that day. And they're good topics, and they're about people most of the time. Mm-hmm. A lot of times people don't have that time anymore. So whatever you get, if they'll read about, the new Ichiban Steakhouse opening up, they want to read about that, and that'll be our highest read story of the day. Friend of mine in town here, Chris Giddens, great guy, a pastor, youth minister down here at Pleasant Valley South Baptist Church. He designed this massive Lego spacecraft that won Best Starship thing at some convention up in Virginia on Saturday morning's Hometown Headlines. Now, I agree, readership's down a little bit here. The best read story was about Chris Giddens doing that. So people's interests they're changed. It's how to do it. How to do today's journalism. It's a whole other segment. Put it like that.
Well, let me ask this then, John. Do you think it's different because overall we have a more informed community? I mean, with the internet, with Twitch, we know so much more now. So traditional journalism, as we have known it, a lot of people may know some of that already. So it's like, do we have to be more creative with journalism?
Well, we do have to be more creative. I think it's the other way around. I think people now are less informed.
Even though with more information?
Yeah, I'm like, 24/7 and, regular media, print, web, TV, radio, whatever you want to call it, social media. No, they're not. And that's what scares me. I mean, we can go to some place and talk about an election. Oh, when's election day? You can walk in there wearing the I voted pad and you're into your office, into a college in this town maybe, and they're going to say, oh, is today election day? Who's running? And you think to yourself, what have you missed? Never mind the hate ads on TV or the wonderful forum you guys did. I mean, where were you people? And it's like with all the tiny media out there, web and radio and all this stuff, we're losing the mass audience. We don't sit around. You guys may be old enough to remember the days we sat around and watched Walter Cronkite, Huntley Brinkley, and Peter Jennings. It's gone. Yeah. I mean, those evening newscast ratings.
Yeah. Well, even newspapers have shrunk. AJC is much smaller than it used to be, and I still read the New York Times, but I'm probably
yeah. No, but it's circulated here. I mean, and I think the Rome News Tribune carriers deliver the New York Times here, as a matter of fact. But how many people now have that Sunday afternoon to sit down there and just crack open a paper for 2 or 3 hours? It doesn't happen anymore. Time is one of the enemies.
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on another break. Please stay with us. We'll be back right after this.
$7,000 high school students drop out every school day. That's a line of desks more than 4 miles long. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step.
Welcome back to Community Watch. We've been having a conversation with John Druckenmiller of Hometown Headlines and WRGA, AM and FM. Yep. And to get, if anybody actually doesn't know how to get to Hometown Headlines, I know I go to it just by typing your name, .com, johndruckenmiller.com. But I imagine you can also get to it.
HometownHeadlines.com, get you there as well. Get to it on Google. And the reason is we're lazy. When we did the new format here about a year ago, we had to test it on, I own the URL, johndruckenmiller.com. Not an ego test, but it's something from another little adventure along the way. We did a magazine for a while, the Druck Report, and we were going to do something with that. And got the John Druckenmiller thing too. Didn't work out. HometownHeadlines.com does it.
All right. Well, thanks for being with us. Thank you. We'll see you next time on Community Watch.